Every Australian news outlet is reporting that the property market is about to collapse, but I bought 35 properties last month for my clients. According to the latest quarterly house price report from Domain, St Kilda fell by $173,000 over the quarter. And the latest CoreLogic data also confirms now that all the major capital cities are going backwards, and the auction clearance rates continue to trend lower, with Sydney below 50% at the weakest level it's been in 30 years. NAB have just released their August the 4th update, and it has them predicting that Sydney and Melbourne will on average fall 10% over the next 12 months, shaving roughly 160,000 off the average Sydney homeowner and 100,000 off the average Melbourne homeowner. And I see so many people sitting on the sidelines right now, and who can blame them? Nobody wants to catch a falling knife. So as someone who bought 35 properties last month, let's cover what's happening in the property market, why the government is crushing the housing market and making it worse for the exact people that they say they're trying to help, and what's going to happen in the next 12 months, and what should you do if you're a renter, homeowner, or you're looking to buy. So Domain's latest quarterly report covers the biggest winners and losers post-budgets, and it's pretty horrendous reading if you're in the major capitals. St Kilda, as I mentioned, dropped 173,000 in the last quarter, but it wasn't just limited to Melbourne. In Sydney, Chatswood fell by 200,000, and in Brisbane's inner north, suburbs like West End and New Farm dropped 350,000, not an insignificant amount of money. And if you look at the latest CoreLogic heat maps, you can see it's not just limited to those as outliers. The darker the red, the worse it is here. A lot of Sydney and a lot of Melbourne suburbs recorded between 3 to 6% drops over the last 3 months. NAB's new loan commitments were down 15%, and Westpac also recently said investor lending was 20% down. So should we all just give up and go home? Well, not quite. Affordability is a major influence on house price growth, and interest rates are at their highest since COVID. And when interest rates go up, the top of the market falls the hardest because it's where the most incomes are stretched. The only markets that are growing are those where most people can afford to buy a property on a regular income. And if you look at some of the affordable markets like Hobart, like Launceston, like Darwin, like the unit markets in Sydney or Melbourne in patches, you can see that there are still areas that are growing. In fact, in NAB's same report, they suggested that over the next 12 months that Hobart will grow by 5%. So why is that? Because the government's policies have actually concentrated investors and first home buyers into the affordable markets, because investors now, I mean, if they have half a brain cell, they're only going to buy at that sort of sub 1 million price bracket because they don't get the benefit of negative gearing. And it's also where in most locations that you've got the 5% deposit scheme, depending on where you are. Obviously that's different in different markets. So you've got the first home buyers and investors in the affordable ends fighting for the same stock. And that's why there's still patchy growth in the Australian housing market. And when you couple this with a massive housing shortage that we still have, and very strong population growth, you're going to see that house price growth is not going to stall everywhere. If you look back at the last 5 years, you'll see that the state that had the greatest variance between the housing stock and the population growth was also the one that grew the most over the following 5 years. As you can see, it's WA there. If you look forward to the next 5 years and you see the current shortfall in the various states, you'll get probably a pretty good clue as to where you might see really aggressive price growth at a state level over the next 5 years. You can see in Tassie and in Northern Territory that they are by far the most undersupplied, and there will also be pockets in New South Wales, Victoria, I'm sure. I also want to show you an example of a property that I was talking to an agent about over the last weekend, and he had 40 people through this property in Hobart, and so many offers that they actually didn't take the highest offer because they were afraid it wouldn't make the bank's evaluation. And this is an absolutely stark contrast to Tom Panos, who recently came out and said that he had the worst auction weekend in his 30-year career. Now, I'm not saying to go and blindly buy in Hobart or Tassie or anywhere that I've run through, but it is likely that some suburbs in those areas are likely to do very well because of the imbalance of supply and demand. Now, obviously there's more to it than just population growth and housing shortage, but they are the most fundamental. So what should you do? Well, it depends who you are and where you are. If you're a renter, then I would say you probably want to lock in your rents, because the overall trend of investors exiting the market now is going to mean that there's going to be far less rentals on aggregate. And so rents are likely to rise really aggressively across the country. If you're a landlord, I would say probably delay locking in your rents for the next 6 months if you can, because you'll then be able to increase your rents quite a bit because of how aggressively they're going to rise. If you're looking to buy and you're buying it in the sort of top end of town, say if you're sort of upgrading a first home maybe into that sort of 1.2 million or above price bracket, I would say wait, because the market is going to come to you over the next 6 to 9 months. And if you're an investor and you're looking to buy in the upper end of town, then I don't know what you're doing, but if you are looking at the affordable end of town, then I would say you're better to obviously buy as soon as you can, because the prices are moving in good locations regardless of what you see in the headlines. I really wouldn't base an investment decision on the falling house price in Sydney when you were never going to buy there anyway. And for anyone who has a home loan, I would say call your lender right now and ask them to do like a comparison of your rate, because banks' loans books are shrinking and they are going to be more receptive than ever to trying to keep you, and you can potentially lower your rate and save yourself a few hundred or a few $1,000s a year. All right, and if you want help buying under market in the right market, then please reach out. My details are in the description.